Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Imagine a world of perpetual night, crushing pressure, and freezing cold water. For centuries, we believed the deep ocean, a vast expanse covering more than 60% of our planet, was a desolate and lifeless desert. This paradigm was shattered in 1977 by a discovery that completely redefined the limits of life. Scientists in a research submersible exploring the Galapagos Rift were astonished to find not a wasteland, but a vibrant, bustling oasis of life clustered around vents in the seafloor. The fuel for this incredible ecosystem wasn't sunlight, but a bizarre and wonderful process called chemosynthesis. For as long as we had studied biology, we believed all life ultimately traced its energy back to the sun through photosynthesis. But the deep sea, far beyond the sun's reach, was thought to rely solely on a light drizzle of organic matter from above, known as marine snow. The discovery of these thriving vent communities, with their towering tube worms and giant clams, posed a critical question: what was fueling this explosion of life in total darkness? The answer was in the hot, mineral-rich fluids gushing from the vents. The primary energy source here is chemical energy. Specialized bacteria and other microbes harness this energy in a process now known as chemosynthesis, becoming the primary producers of the deep sea. They form the base of a complex food web that was previously unimaginable. So how does this engine of life actually work? Chemosynthesis is essentially the conversion of carbon molecules, like carbon dioxide, into organic matter. But instead of using sunlight for energy like plants do, these microbes use the energy from chemical reactions. They perform a remarkable two-step trick. First comes energy productions. The microbes oxidize or break down inorganic compounds that are abundant in their environment. Around hydrothermal vents, this is often hydrogen sulfide, the same chemical that gives rotten eggs their distinct smell. This reaction releases energy. The second step is carbon fixation. The energy captured in the first step is then used to power a process that converts inorganic carbon, like the carbon dioxide dissolved in the seawater, into organic molecules like sugars. These sugars are food. In essence, these chemosynthetic microbes play the exact same role as plants and algae in the sunlit world, but they do it using chemistry instead of light. Different microbes have evolved to use different chemical pathways, depending on what's available. Where hydrogen sulfide is plentiful, sulfur-oxidizing bacteria dominate. In other areas rich in methane, methane-oxidizing microbes take the lead. These oases of life are not all the same. They appear in several distinct types of deep-sea environments. The most famous are hydrothermal vents. These are often called black smokers or white smokers because of the color of the mineral-rich fluids they spew. They form where tectonic plates are pulling apart, allowing seawater to seep deep into the Earth's crust. There, it's heated by magma to staggering temperatures, sometimes up to 400 degrees Celsius, and becomes saturated with chemicals. This superheated toxic brew then erupts back into the cold ocean, creating towering chimney-like structures and fueling the surrounding ecosystem. Then there are cold seeps. As the name suggests, the fluids here seep out at temperatures close to the surrounding seawater. They aren't driven by volcanic heat, but by tectonic pressure that squeezes fluids rich in methane and hydrogen sulfide from the sediments below. Cold seeps are surprisingly common and can appear as pockmarks, shimmering brine pools, or even underwater mud volcanoes. Finally, and perhaps the strangest of all, are whale falls. When a multi-ton whale dies and its carcass sinks to the abyssal plain, it creates a massive, temporary chemosynthetic ecosystem. The process occurs in stages. First, large scavengers like hagfish and sleeper sharks arrive to feast on the soft tissues. After they've had their fill, a community of smaller organisms colonizes the skeleton, feeding on the remaining organic matter. The final and most crucial stage begins when chemosynthetic bacteria start breaking down the lipids, or fats, locked within the whale's bones. This process releases hydrogen sulfide, which in turn supports a community of life very similar to those at vents and seeps. These whale falls can last for decades and act as vital stepping stones, allowing chemosynthetic species to disperse and colonize new habitats across the vast, otherwise barren, deep-sea floor. The creatures that inhabit these dark oases are as bizarre and fascinating as their environment. Many are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else on Earth. The poster child for hydrothermal vents is the giant tube worm, Riftia pachyptilla. These incredible animals can grow up to 8 feet tall. They have no mouth, no gut, and no anus. Instead, they possess a large, blood-red plume that acts as a gill, absorbing oxygen, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide directly from the water. They are essentially a living, specialized container for symbiotic bacteria. Inside their body is an organ called the trophosome, packed with chemosynthetic bacteria. The bacteria produce food for the tube worm, and in return, the worm provides the bacteria with a safe, stable home and a steady supply of chemicals. You'll also find dense beds of deep-sea mussels and giant white clams clustered around these sites. Like the tube worms, they rely on symbiotic chemosynthetic bacteria, which live inside their gills. Some mussel species are so adaptable, they can host multiple types of symbionts, allowing them to switch between using hydrogen sulfide and methane as an energy source. And then there are creatures like the yeti crab from the Kiwiti family. These crabs are famous for their hairy-looking claws, which are covered in filaments of bacteria. It's believed the crabs actively farm these bacteria, waving their claws in the mineral-rich currents to help them grow, and then scraping them off for a meal. The food webs here are built on a completely different foundation from what we see on land. At the very base are the chemosynthetic microbes, the primary producers. The next level up includes organisms that graze directly on the thick mats of bacteria coating the rocks, like some snails and shrimp. This level also includes the symbiont hosts, like the tube worms and mussels, who get their energy directly from their internal bacterial partners. Preying on these primary consumers are the carnivores, or secondary consumers. Various species of crabs, fish, and even octopuses hunt the smaller grazers and symbiont hosts. At the top of the food web are larger predators, who keep the ecosystem in balance. Life in the deep sea is a constant battle against extremes, and these organisms have evolved incredible adaptations. The pressure is immense, over 1,000 times greater than at the surface in the deepest parts of the ocean. Deep-sea creatures have evolved highly specialized proteins and flexible cell membranes that resist being crushed. They must also tolerate extreme temperature gradients, from the near-freezing ambient water to the scorching fluid jetting from a vent. In the perpetual darkness, vision is not always the most important sense. Many creatures have developed enormous eyes to capture the faintest glimmers of light, which often comes from other living things in the form of bioluminescence. Other animals are completely blind, relying on touch and highly sensitive chemical receptors to navigate and find food. Away from the concentrated oases, food is incredibly scarce. To survive, many deep-sea animals have slow metabolisms to conserve energy, along with large mouths and expandable stomachs to ensure they can capitalize on any meal, no matter how large or infrequent that comes their way. For species living in these patchy, isolated habitats, reproduction and dispersal are critical challenges. How do you find a new home when your habitat is a tiny spot in an ocean of emptiness? Many vent and seep animals solve this by producing huge numbers of tiny larvae that are released into the water. These larvae can be carried by ocean currents for hundreds of miles, with the slim hope that a few will eventually settle in a new, suitable habitat. The discovery of whale falls provided a crucial piece of this dispersal puzzle, confirming their role as biological stepping stones that allow species to maintain genetic connections between distant populations. These chemosynthetic ecosystems are far more than just biological curiosities. They are fundamentally important to the health of our planet. They are hotspots of biodiversity, home to a wealth of unique species that are still being discovered. They also play a significant role in global biogeochemical cycles, especially the carbon cycle. The microbes at the base of these food webs are incredibly efficient at converting carbon into biomass, effectively sequestering it in the deep ocean for long periods. Understanding this process is becoming increasingly vital as we grapple with the effects of climate change. Furthermore, these ecosystems are a potential treasure trove of novel biochemical compounds. The unique adaptations of organisms living in such extreme conditions have led to the evolution of enzymes and molecules with remarkable properties that could have valuable applications in medicine, biotechnology, and other industries. But despite their remoteness, these fragile worlds are not immune to human impacts. They face a growing number of threats. The increasing demand for minerals has sparked a serious interest in deep-sea mining. The seafloor around vents is rich in valuable metals, but mining operations could cause irreversible damage, destroying habitats, creating toxic sediment plumes, and disrupting these unique communities. Climate change is also a major threat. The oceans are absorbing excess heat and carbon dioxide, leading to warming, acidification, and changes in circulation patterns that could devastate ecosystems adapted to stable conditions. Finally, pollution, from plastics to oil spills, is finding its way into the deep ocean, harming life in this last great frontier. The deep sea remains one of the least explored environments on Earth. With each expedition, we learn more about the incredible diversity of life it holds. The discovery of chemosynthesis was a profound reminder of how much we still have to learn about our own planet, and a testament to the sheer resilience and adaptability of life. As our ability to access the deep sea increases, so too does our responsibility to protect it. It will require international cooperation, further scientific research, and greater public awareness to safeguard these unique and fragile habitats for the future. The fate of this hidden world is in our hands, and we must approach it with a sense of wonder, respect, and responsibility.